Hi YouTube, welcome back to part 3 of the CAT 740 build. So, in the last episode we finished the entire rear chassis for the CAT 740, and in this episode I want to finish the front chassis and have a complete truck. And with that said, I'm just going to jump right into the build, and the first thing I'm going to do is take off the steering parts right here, this middle section. And then I'll put the steering motor in. Let's see, one of these. And we are going to bring this outside in my garage. And we are going to drill a hole, not all the way through, but a little deeper into this axle shaft, because that will make the set screws sit a lot tighter. So the print quality on this is not really the best, but once I get a cabin mounted on, this will not be visible. And we are going to take off this part and the one on the bottom here, this one, because we are going to press fit bearings inside here. But first, let's bring this outside. Alright, so the hole is drilled, and it's not really that deep, it's maybe 3 millimeters deep. And you can also see that I didn't drill on the flat spot on the motor. That's because I want this to be as tight as possible. When I tighten the screw down, I don't want it to have any air room between the coupler and the motor. So that's why I did that. And if I place the coupler on here, you can see that it's got about 1 millimeter of clearance between the coupler and the motor. So the steering parts on these dumpers or these builds, they are very important that you get them tight, because if these come loose from the motor, you will have a lot of dead zone in the turning radius, which is very annoying when you're driving around and it goes on its own. So I don't actually have a set screw at the moment, but I have this one. It's a M4 by 10 stainless steel screw, and I'm going to modify this by trimming down the head of it, and I'm going to cut it shorter. And then once I've cut it shorter, I'm going to grind the end of the threads so that it's got a point which will stick down into this hole. You'll see. And here you can see the screw. So it's got a pointy tip and it's shorter now, and I also trimmed down the head so that it can fit on here. So I'm going to rotate the motor so that I can access the set screw hole with my tools. So I put my custom screw in front here, and I'm putting a normal set screw on the back. Alright, so hopefully this will sit. As you can see, there's a little slop, but that's because of the gears and inside here and not the motor shaft or coupler. So I'm going to rotate this back now. So we are installing the end switches for the steering motor now, and we already soldered them in one of the earlier episodes. You want this one to point towards the middle, While we wait for the soldering iron to warm up, I almost forgot to press fit the bearings on these parts, so I'm going to do that now. So all the bearings are now pressed in, and I'll begin remounting these, and then we can continue on with the end switches. Alright, so I'm going to test the end switches now. I'm just going to run the motor quickly and see which way it turns first. Alright, so it turns towards this side. So that means when I press and hold this one, it should stop. So I'm going to hold down this end switch and the motor should not move. And it does. So I'm going to have to switch the wires around. Alright, so I switched the wires around and let's test it again. Alright, so now it doesn't move, and when I let go of the switch it should move. Yes, it does. Alright, so this side is now completed, and I think this side has to switch wires as well, but we will see. I'm going to reverse the motor now. So holding down the switch, and the motor still turns. So I'm going to have to swap around these two wires as well. Alright, so I'm testing it again. Holding down the switch. And the motor does not turn. Releasing the switch, and the motor turns. So we've got the end switches worked out, and now I can begin installing the steering motor. So we are moving the steering links backward like this, and then we just install it inside of here. Alright, so I think it's time to begin installing the electronics. And I'm going to walk you through step by step on how I connect them to the dumper. Alright, so first things first. Remove this tab right here and leave only the one for LiPo in all of the ESCs. I will remove this red wire. Actually, I'll just cut it off because I don't need it. And I'll explain to you why. This red wire gives power to the receiver, and you only want one ESC to give power to the receiver. So here you can see I've cut the red wire on two of them, but leaving it on one of them. So that way only this ESC will provide power to the receiver, and sometimes if you plug in two or more ESCs with the red wire in them, the receiver can actually burn up because of the voltages. So these are supposed to be the same kind of ESC, right? And they provide, I think it's 4.8 volts to the receiver, but sometimes they differ in the voltage they give. So let's say that this one is down to 4.6 volts and this one gives 4.9 volts, and that will create some disturbance in the receiver, and it will make it become hot and it can burn. So that's why I always remove the red wire on all ESCs except for one. And I recommend that you do that as well, because I've actually experienced 2 times that the receiver has gone bad from not removing these. So here you can see that I soldered all the red and black wires to the battery together on all ESCs, and these lines or these wires, they will actually go to the battery plug. So I'm going to go ahead and solder on that now. Alright, so the next step will be to remove the bullet connectors on one of the ESCs, because I'm putting this one for the steering motor, and I will cut these off, but I will reuse these on the front axle wire. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So put these away for the moment, and I'll go ahead and solder this onto here, and I'll see you soon. Alright, so the ESCs are now ready, and I'll put them aside for now. And now I'm going to show you what I meant with the bullet connectors. So these are the ones that I cut off the ESC, and I'm going to plug them onto this wire that goes into the front axle. And I'll also put a set of these. So on the front axle wires, I'm going to plug these on like this, because then I can plug this end into the ESC and this end into the rear motors. And that way I run all the 6 motors for the wheels on one ESC. And the good thing about this is that I can reverse the wires for the rear motors if they turn incorrectly. So I'm probably going to have to, I'll take off the front axle because this wire is a little short, and I'll solder these on. So here's the wires soldered up, and I'm going to reinstall the front axle, and we can probably begin to join the front and rear chassis together now. So we've got the front chassis mounted onto the rear chassis, and I've connected the steering links, and I've also put on reverse lights on the front chassis. On these parts you have these small grooves that you can guide the wires through, and there's a hole here on the chassis so you can run the wires inside, and they won't be in the way when the cabin gets mounted on here. So all the wires are now ready, and we can begin installing the electronics. So this box is completely wrecked, so I really hope that the transmitter inside here is in one piece. And it looks like it is. Alright, so I'm going to walk you through step by step on how I connect the transmitter to the receiver and connect the electronics into the receiver. And I will also walk you through on how to set up the transmitter for this dumper. So the first thing I do is just plug in the bind plug on BVCC. And then you turn this transmitter on. But before we bind it up, I'm just going to go through a couple of settings. And the first one is the screen lock. We are going to take off the screen lock like this, and the sound is actually already turned all the way down. Never encountered that before, but it's okay. Next step is to go to sticks mode, And I'm sorry about the flickering screen. I'm not sure why my phone is doing this. I think it's because of the bright surface on the controller. I'll try to hold it like this. So here we can see that it's M3, and that means that channel 1 and 2 is on this side, and 3 and 4 is on this side. And that's actually what we want. So I'm going back on this, and then we can go to the top where it says RX bind, and let's just put this aside for a bit. So next step, we find the ESC which has the red wire. Here it is. So this one. So this will be one of the, let's say this is the drive motor's ESC. So I'm going to plug this into channel 2. You can see here on this menu. So you get to this menu by just flicking your finger from left to right. And then you get into an overview of all the channels. So you can scroll down to channel 10 and see all the channels in use. So when I press this forward, you can see channel 2 is going up. So we are going to plug in the drive motors on channel 2 because I want to drive with this one. Okay, so, and we already know that the steering motor has this connector on it. So we will connect the steering motor into channel 4. So channel 4 like this. And then we've got the final ESC, which will be for the tipping system. We will plug that into channel 5. So now I can just hook up a battery onto this. Give me a second. So I'm plugging in the battery and the receiver will start flashing quickly. Here you can see. And that means that the receiver is in bind mode. So now I just go back on this menu, press this one, and go to System and click RX bind. It says bind OK, and the light is now constant. You take out the bind plug, and now it is bound up with the transmitter. So what we can do next is connect all the ESCs. I'm going to take off the battery just in case. And I know that the long wires, the long motor wires here is for the tipping system. And I plug that in channel 5, which is this ESC right here. So it doesn't matter which way you plug these wires in. I'm just gonna plug them in and see what happens. And we can test it right now. So we can take one function at a time. Plug in the battery. And channel 5 actually has to be configured before we use it. So we scroll down in the function menu to aux channels. Here we can see channel 5, it says none. So we press this, and I want the tipping system to be on this shoulder button. And if you read, it says VRB. So this is the VRB switch. So we click VR and we select VRB. And now we can test it. So it's working, but I want it to go up when I press up. So I have to reverse the channel. So we go to function menu, go to the top. It says reverse. Find channel 5 and reverse it. Perfect. And now for the tipping system, while we're working on it, we have to turn it down. I don't want it to work at 100%, so we go to endpoints, find channel 5, put it down to 70%. It will slow down the motor and put a lot less stress on the system. You can hear the sound now. And also the speed will be reduced when you're doing this. And here you can see the end switch is working. So that's good. So let's continue on. I'm going to plug in the steering motor. And I've got it connected to this channel here, which was channel 4. But before I begin using it, I'm going to turn it down as well. I'll be putting this one to 65% on both ways. So the reason for this is because I don't want the motor to be too strong, because it will rattle loose over time if it's too strong. So now we can test it. I'm going to turn left and it turns right, so I'm going to have to reverse channel 4 as well. There we go. So now we have the steering and the tipping system. Let's connect the drive motors, and now I'm going to show you why I connected these the way I did. So we have the drive motors from the rear chassis coming here, and we have the front drive motors coming through these two. So what I do is I actually connect these rear motors into these plugs, and then let's see here, and then I connect these two to the ESC. Like this. So if I connected these two correctly now, the motors on the front and rear should spin the same way. But if the front motors spin differently than the rears, I'll just switch these two wires around. So that's why I use these connectors. So I'm going to press forward now and see. And here you can see that the front motors are going forward while the rear motors are going backward. So I'm going to reverse the wires like I said. There we go. And when I press forward now, the rear motors will go forward. And the same with the front motors, they go forward as well. Alright guys, so before we continue on with this, I'm going to give you a tip, and that is you want to have delay on your drive motors. This controller can't put a delay on them, but if you have a fancy controller you can adjust the delay on that. But if you have one of these, you can put this one on. So this is a servo delay module, but it works on ESCs as well as servos. So I'm going to show you now what this does and why it's so important. So imagine this, that this tipper box is full of sand. It's probably 15 kilograms of sand. And you don't think about it, but you press forward and you give it full throttle. Okay? So having a big load in the tipper box and giving it full throttle will wear out the motors really quick. You can in fact break the gearboxes on them. So I'm going to plug this in now on the drive motors ESC, and remember that was on channel 2. Yeah, channel 2. So I'll plug this. I'm going to show you here. So I'm taking out channel 2. I'm plugging this in between. Alright. And now I'm going to give it full throttle. See what happens. You see how smooth that is? And that helps the drivetrain survive a lot. And with this module you will probably never break it. So, but there's one thing that you got to keep in mind, and that is when you release the throttle, it will slowly decelerate as well. So keep that in mind. Alright, so I'm going to install this sound and light system onto this dumper. And I'm going to try my best to explaining how to connect it and why I connect it the way I do. So you always start with plugging this wire onto the battery plug, and then this speaker, I'll just put it over here at the moment. There we go. So all of these wires, they have their own functions. So these two female plugs, you can see them here. You're supposed to plug in the drive motors on one of them and the steering servo on the other. However, I will not be using them on this build, so I'm going to put them away. Alright, so you have 3 signal wires here. So this blue wire, when you plug in the drive motors ESC onto this, this one goes into the channel for the drive motors, which will actually raise the RPM on the engine when you pull the throttle and stuff. So what I'm going to do now is just plug this not into channel 2, but I will plug it into channel 6, and I will mix channel 2 onto channel 6. So the reason for this, I'm going to try to explain this here. I want the engine RPM to go up when I drive the drive motors, but I also want the engine RPM to go up when I use the tipping system. So I'm going to mix the drive motors onto this channel and the tipping system also onto this channel. And this blue wire will need to be configured. So we will do that now. We go to the function menu, scroll down to aux channels, you select channel 6, and you gotta pick a switch for it. So I'm going to use this one, SWB. So we pick SW and we pick B. Alright, and it's important that it's in the middle, because or else it will begin to raise or lower the RPMs. So this is basically, now we are fooling this light and sound controller to think that we are controlling the throttle with this stick. So it needs to stay in the middle. And this yellow wire is the start and stop of the engine sound and also the horn. So I'm going to plug that into channel 7. And now we have to configure channel 7. So I want it to stop and start when I press this one down, and I want the horn to be up. So I'm going to select VR, because this is VRA, and here you can see VRA. So we now have a stop and start, and we also have the horn. But before we plug in the battery, you have to plug in this plug right here on channel 8. So what this does is it allows you to walk through the menus, because this sound controller has a menu that you configure the sounds in, and we'll get back to that, but you have to have this one in order to get power to this. And the green wire here is just a simple light switch, so you can control the lights with this, and I'll plug that in channel 9. So we are now going to configure the 2 channels that I plugged in. So on channel 8, I'll put that on SWC, like this. And it's important that this one also stays in the middle. And channel 9 is the light switch, so I'm going to have the lights on SWA, like this. So let's go into the, here you can see that channel 9 is now always in one of the positions, okay, because this is a 2-point switch. And this one, the two in the middle, they are 3-point switches. Here you can see, when they are in the middle, they are at 0. Okay. So what you want to do is to have channel 9 in 0 when it's up, and then when you flick it down, you want it to go at the side. Okay. So the way you configure that is by going to endpoints, and you see channel 9, and you choose this side, put it at 0, go back, scroll down. Now you can see that channel 9 is at 0. So I flick it down, and it's now working for the lights. All right. So if I didn't do that, the lights will always be kind of flickering on and off. So I know there's a lot of information here, and it's probably hard to understand, but I'm trying to explain as good as I can. So now we should have a working sound module, and I'm going to plug in the battery. And I want to start the motor by pressing down, so let's try pressing down. Perfect. So when I press forward, nothing happens on the sound, you see. But if I flick this switch, it will go into RPM. Alright, so I'm going to... Let's turn it off for a second. So I'm going to mix the channel on this deck onto the sound channel now. So we go to mix. So we select mix 1 on. And the master will be channel 2, in this case the drive motors. And we will try to pick channel 2 here, but you can see that channel 2 is already the slave, so it won't let us choose channel 2. So we will pick the slave first, which is channel 6. You remember that we put the blue wire on channel 6. And then we can pick the channel 2 as master. And these two values at the bottom, we always put them on 100% in this case, because we have to figure out which way is the reverse and which way is forward. So let's test this. Start the engine. Okay, it seems I was lucky. Both of these values were correct. And now I'm going to mix on the second channel. I'm going to mix in the tipping system onto the sound controller. So the master in this case will be channel 5, because the tipping system is channel 5. And the slave, which is the sound module, is channel 6. And we will put this one at, let's try 35%. And I think this one will have to be negative 35%. So let's try. Okay, I have to reverse both of these. So let's put this one at minus 35. And this one at plus 35. There we go. Alright, so that's the mixing. And we have sound on the channels we want to have sound on. So let's try flicking this one and see what happens. Yeah, you can hear the sound for the light switch, And I haven't actually plugged any lights in yet, so let's go ahead and try them. Okay, so according to this schematic, the reverse lights are here and the red tail lights are here. So we are going to plug the red tail lights into the third channel on this side, which will be this one right here. So I'll go ahead and plug the red lights into this, and it's this one. Okay, and the reverse lights is supposed to be on the next channel, the fourth, which will be this one right here. So let's go ahead and test the lights. So we have red lights on the rear. So I think I have to start the engine in order to get the reverse lights. So when I press this switch backward, it should go in reverse. Yeah. Okay, so all the lights are working so far, and let's stop the engine. If you can see here, we've got two channels for the front lights, so I'll be plugging them in later when I got the hood on. So the electronics is now finished, and I can begin assembling the rest of the front chassis. And again, I'm sorry for the weird explanations of things, guys. I know exactly how to do it, it's just hard for me to explain it. So it's a lot easier for me to just plug in all this and be done with it. So I'm trying my best to explain it. I hope you understood what I did with all these wires. It's really not that hard. Trust me, it's really not that hard. That was pretty unfortunate, but there's really no problem. This piece, since it's not hinged on the front, was a little more upward than it should be, so the paint didn't really cover this area. But I'm gonna leave it as it is, because this is a minor mistake. On this side it's barely noticeable, but it's better on this side. Anyway, I'm going to try to mount up the hood to the chassis and see if it fits. So I'm putting on the front wheels, and I thought I should show you how easy it is to install these rims onto these tires, because the front rims that I'm using is not beadlock. So all you have to do is press them inside the tire and then line up the back side. There we go. So the reason I don't use these kind of rims on the rear is because especially on the middle axle, so when you turn with a big load in the tipper box, the chassis kind of wants to rip the tire off the rim, so that's why I don't run with these rims on all axles. So now I just simply put it on top of the hub and insert all the screws. But before I put on the wheels though, I'm going to put on the front mud guards. So they will be mounted on the inside here. And these are printed in TPU. The front wheels and the front mud flaps is now mounted up. And I'm going to glue this little detail onto the other side here now. So this is going to sit inside here. Alright guys, so the only thing missing now is the cabin. So let's move on to that. Alright, so it's time to assemble the cabin, and I'm going to cut out the windows for it now. And I'm using this. This is a 0.75 millimeter polycarbonate. So it's very nice to use for windows. And I don't know where you order this online. I buy them from a local guy here in Norway. So I have no clue where you can get these yourself. So this is the Windows template that is included with the files. So all you have to do is just place this on top of whatever you're cutting out. And I'm using a pencil to draw out like this. So now that the windows are cut out, I can begin mounting them up onto the cabin with the soldering iron. The windows are now finished, and this is what they look like. So before I begin mounting up the roof, I'm going to install the roof lights. Alright guys, so the CAT 740 is now finished. So there we have the CAT 740, and I'm super happy with how this turned out, and I'm very happy with how it all came together. But we are not finished yet. We still have to configure the sounds, like the engine sound and the horn sound, etc. So I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to adjust the sounds. You have to plug in the battery and you have to have the transmitter on. But you don't want to start the engine sound, because to enter the settings menu, the engine sound has to be off. And by going into the settings menu, you press forward. Right now I'm on the bench, so I'm going to put something under all the wheels so that it can't drive off my bench. If we didn't mix this stick onto the sound unit, you could press forward and nothing happens, but since we mixed this, it wants to go. So I'm going to put it up on something now, and I'll be back. Alright, so here we can see that the 740 is now off the ground and I can spin the wheels freely. So in order to get into the settings menu, you have the engine sound off and you press forward until you hear it talk to you. So it's talking in Chinese right now, so what you want to do is just keep pressing forward until you hear it say language. Language. There we go. And in order to scroll through the menus, you press this switch. English. And now it's in English. We can press forward on this again. Volume adjustment. This is the volume adjustment, and I'm going to actually adjust it down one bit. Already maximum, decrease volume. So let's go to the next one. Engine sound. So I'm going to have it at this sound. Horn sound. So here we have the horn sound. Sound of turning signal. On, off. Sound of reversing drive. Off, on. Sound of reversing drive is the beep when you put it in reverse. Turbine sound on off. So turbine sound is kind of you have this whistle when you drive, and it's supposed to simulate a turbo, I guess. Off, on. So I'll keep that on this model. Language. Yeah. And now we're back to the language part, and that means we've scrolled through all the settings, and we can press forward and hold it forward in order to exit the settings. Volume adjustment, exit settings. So we have now saved the settings and we can start the engine. For some reason the reverse lights don't work now, which is kind of odd. I'm going to try to reset it and see if they come back. Alright, so now they work again. That's a little odd. but maybe it's when I pack the battery like this. Yeah, we have a bad connection here. So I guess I'm going to just try this. Oh, okay. So you can see that it's coming out. Yeah. All right, so there we go. So one of the connectors was actually coming out from this plug. It's fixed now. Alright guys, so there's one more thing I have to show you, because some of you might have this problem, and that is when you press forward with the engine sound on, the reverse signal kicks in and the reverse lights comes on. And swapping the motor wires won't fix the problem, because the sound unit is still running the same. So, and I will show you how to fix it. I just have to reverse my sound unit first so that I get the same problem. So you heard that sound. That means that I switched, or I reversed the sound. So if I start the engine now and I press forward, the reverse lights will come on and the reverse beep will start. Okay, so if you have this problem, you stop the engine, you press this stick forward 5 times in order to reverse the sound unit, and you will hear a sound. Press it 5 times. You heard that sound? Now it's been reversed, so I start the engine, and when I press forward now, it won't start the reverse beep. It will function as normal. That's how you reverse the sound unit and get it to work the correct way. Okay, so I'm going to do a small suspension test here, and I've put some stuff on the bench. Let's drive over it and see how the axles perform. Let's not drive off the bench. Perfect. So let's see how wide the steering angle is. So I'm going to turn all the way to the left. So it stops here. And you can see it's almost hitting the rear chassis here. So this is 40 degrees of steering angle. Alright, so let's put up the tipping system. So while I have it up, I'm going to grease the tipping system. You need to put grease on it, or else the brass nut will get hot and it will be destroyed. So alright, so now we have the tipping system lubed up, and this 740 is ready for some action. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for this episode, and we finished the 740. However, I'm going to bring it outside for some testing, And I'm actually going over to Ronnie's tomorrow, and I'm bringing this dumper with me so that I can test it there. So stay tuned for the testing video. It's probably coming tomorrow night, and the files for the 740 and 745 has been uploaded to Cults 3D. So if you are interested in this dumper, you can find the files there. The link is down below. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.